AJ Wilcox is a LinkedIn ads pro who founded B2Linked.com, a LinkedIn ads specific ad agency in 2014. As official LinkedIn partners, they manage among the world's most sophisticated advertising accounts worldwide. AJ is the author of the LinkedIn Learning course on LinkedIn advertising, as well as the author of the soon-to-be-released book, LinkedIn Demystified. He's a ginger and a triathlete. He and his wife live in Utah with their 4 kids, all under 10, and his company car is a wicked fast go-kart. I love that. AJ has so much energy, and the two of us totally clicked in this interview. So I hope that you enjoy it as much as I enjoyed doing it. Welcome to the PR Maven Podcast, a podcast all about growing your network and building your brand through traditional and digital networking techniques. I'm Nancy Marshall, the PR Maven and CEO of Marshall Communications. I've been strengthening brands through PR for over 35 years, and now I'm celebrating the success of executives, influencers, business owners, and entrepreneurs from all around the world, all of whom have cultivated their brands and broadened their networks through traditional and digital networking methods. Each week, I interview one of these interesting and influential individuals and provide an opportunity for you, the PR Maven Nation, to gain insights from their strategies and stories. So stay tuned for this week's episode, and thanks for listening. AJ, how did you get into marketing, and specifically, how did you get into LinkedIn advertising?
Well, it was kind of interesting. I never really knew that I wanted to go into marketing until I got into the university, and I knew I wanted to be in the business school. And there were a whole bunch of different disciplines in the business school, and I saw marketing and went, "Oh, I remember when I used to watch TV with my dad. He was a Trekkie. He loved watching Star Trek, and we'd be watching the show, and then when it got to the commercials, he'd ask me questions like, hey, who do you think that is the audience of this commercial? Who do you think they're trying to reach? And what are they trying to say?" And so it got me in that mindset. And then when I saw marketing as an option, I went, oh, that sounds interesting. So I went all the way through school, ready to get my degree in marketing. And one of the internships that I saw was in digital marketing. It was actually in search engine optimization. And the more I learned about it, the more I went, wow, that is exactly what I want to do. It's technical, but it's marketing at the same time. And so I went and got an internship doing it and never looked back. I mean, I started in search engine optimization and then learned more about Google ads and loved those. And then years and years later, as I'm sure we'll get to, I learned about LinkedIn ads and really fell in love with those. So it's such a quickly changing world that I just love. There's always something new for my brain.
Well, I agree. Absolutely. That's the way I feel about it. But I'm curious I love the story about your father being a Trekkie. What Star Trek fans were some of the common personas or avatars?
Oh, I don't know, to be honest. I think going back, I was probably like 10, 15 years old. And I have to imagine that if you're advertising to Trekkies, it's probably mostly men. So I probably saw a significant amount of like male focused ads. But man, I wish I remembered specific examples, because that's good.
Is your father still with us?
He is. Yes. Thank goodness.
Yeah. So you could check with him. Is he still a Trekkie?
I don't think he's watched Star Trek in many, many years, but I'm going to talk to him the next time I talk to him. I'll ask him.
I think you should ask him. So, AJ, as you know, this podcast is all about building your brand by building your network, both online and in person. How does LinkedIn help people accomplish this goal of broadening their network?
Oh, LinkedIn is just the perfect network, social network to be on to increase your social network. And the reason why, I mean, not only did it kind of start out as a Rolodex, it was the place that I went to go and make sure that I was connected to everyone that I knew professionally, just because I didn't want to keep their business cards around. But it's evolved. Now it's a really solid content network where you can go and share something on LinkedIn just in the news feed. And what we see is it's really easy to go viral on LinkedIn. On Facebook, if you go and share something, you might get, a few comments and a few likes here or there. Even if you have a lot of friends, it just nothing happens. But on LinkedIn, it's really not uncommon for me to share something that gets 10,000, 20,000, 50,000 views. And I don't have nearly that many people following me on LinkedIn. So I love the free reach that we get, in addition to the fact that your actual professional name and nature is related to your profile. And so people tend to be on their best behavior when they're on LinkedIn. So you don't get trolls like you do on other networks. It is your real name. So people tend to just act very professionally. And so with all those benefits together, it's the perfect network, I think, to continue to build a personal brand.
Well, I agree. My experience with LinkedIn has been amazing. And, as far as connecting with somebody online, when I connect with somebody in person, I immediately seek to connect with them through LinkedIn because I want to be able to remember them. For me, it's like a great way to have almost a Rolodex, to refer to an old term. But, if I go to a networking event and if I do collect business cards, I'll immediately invite all those people to connect with me on LinkedIn. And that way, if a month from now, I want to reach out to that person, but I can't remember their name, but then I can search through LinkedIn. And it's very well optimized for search too. So if you remember that somebody, does digital marketing or they do SEO or whatever, you can search and find them. So for me, it does work really well, both online and in person.
Oh, yeah. And to that point, all the time, I have this need that's I'm so bad with names. So I'll go onto LinkedIn and say, ooh, I know someone in Georgia who does Facebook ads. Who is that? And I'll just type in Facebook ads and location Georgia, and I can find who that person is. So it really is great to remind me of names that I can't remember.
Yeah, no, that it is. It's wonderful for that. So can you explain, AJ, for somebody who has never done LinkedIn advertising, how does that work versus just organic LinkedIn?
Yeah. So, if you're actually trying to do things organically, like you're trying to reach out and have conversations, LinkedIn ads is a really insanely scalable way of doing the same thing. So because we all go onto LinkedIn and we put our name and say what company we work for and what our job title is, and we claim skills and we join groups, all of those are signals about who we are and what we're about. And so an advertiser can go on and say something like, hey, the only people who will buy my software, my product, are, let's say, decision makers in HR at tech companies with more than 500 people at them. And so that's what the ad platform's all about, is using people's professional persona to show only the most relevant people ads. And that way, when you go to close a deal with one of these people, or when you get a lead from one of them, every single one is just a golden lead. I tell people it's like every lead you generate from LinkedIn is going to be the logo you put on your website later. Whereas if you're generating leads from other channels like Google or Facebook, they're going to be little onesie-twosie deals, and your sales team's going to be saying that they're low quality and having to sift through them a little bit. So it's kind of like prime lead generation.
That sounds really great because, salespeople want to be able to talk to somebody who's at least a warm prospect. They don't want to talk to totally cold prospects. And if they're a hot prospect, that's even better.
Yeah. And I like to split digital marketing channels in kind of two different buckets. You have search channels and social channels, and both of them can be, a sales team might call them high quality or hot leads for a different reason. If someone comes in from search, like let's say Google ads, they know what they want. They have a project on the table. They're out searching for it. And all you have to do is give it to them. So that might be a deal that closes, in 2 or 3 weeks versus in social media, we can make sure that it's exactly the right person. But what we don't have the ability to control is what their intent is, how close they are to a project. So if your sales team knows that if they sell to VPs and above at large companies, you can make sure that every one of your leads comes from that, and they're going to think that those are great. But they probably won't be the deals that close tomorrow. Social media is a little higher up in the sales process than that, but boy, they can be high quality or hot leads in very different areas.
Well, it's interesting you bring that up because I've been writing, I write a column for Forbes.com, and I've been writing lately about the difference between sales and marketing, and also how marketing's job really is to find leads and warm them up so that salespeople can go in and close the deal, like to shorten the sales cycle. I just clapped my hand, and Tanner looked over like, "What are you doing in there, Nancy?" It's like, I was like, "Close that sale." Sorry. Anyway, I won't clap my hands anymore, Tanner. Anyway, but absolutely, I can see how this would be such an advantage, to shorten the sales cycle. And it isn't, it's not going to do the selling for you, but it'll make the job so much easier for the salespeople.
Yeah. And one thing that's so cool about social media advertising, this was started by Facebook, but now LinkedIn has this capability. We can target people, very specific people, by email address. And we can even take that a step further on LinkedIn by targeting specific companies by name. And so what you can do is you could take a list of, here are my favorite 100 customers that I've ever worked with, and you can upload those people or their companies into LinkedIn and say, LinkedIn, go and create a lookalike audience that looks like them. Go find me more people who are likely to be my next 100 favorite customers. Or you could take a list of everyone who's been a lead in the last, 2 or 3 weeks, upload them into LinkedIn, and but maybe they just haven't closed yet. And you can be showing ads to them, and maybe if you know that this is going to be a decision made by a whole committee, maybe if you're trying to target marketers, maybe you're targeting the CMO and the CFO and the business owner all at the same time, so that you can kind of help that committee make the decision to go with your product a little bit easier. So lots of cool nurture, lots of cool ways of surrounding a warm audience and warming them up ultra fast that we just couldn't ever do before we had social advertising.
Yeah, that sounds really great. I'd like to learn more about how to do this because I think there's a lot that can be done. But of course, I realize that when you're really getting into spending money on it and making an investment, that's why you need a professional like you.
And I'd say not to toot my own horn or anything, because absolutely, I would love anyone listening to get to work with us. That would be amazing. But the goal of this is not to sell you. LinkedIn ads it's a really expensive ad channel. If you're advertising on Facebook, you might pay $1 to $2 a click for business to business leads. On LinkedIn, you're going to pay between $8 to $11 per click. So it's significantly more expensive than other ad channels. And what that means is if you go it alone and you're trying to learn this learning curve of a new channel, you'll probably make some mistakes. And because it's an expensive channel, the mistakes become expensive. So working with someone like us or someone who has already learned that learning curve, significantly increases your chances for success because you're not making expensive mistakes along the way.
Right. And speaking of that, how much money should people plan to spend to make a measurable impact on LinkedIn?
I love this question because I actually have an answer. So based off of, I think every time someone asks this question on other channels, the answer is always, well, it depends. And
yeah, right.
I hate it depends answers. So I came up with a real answer here. What we find is based off of that $8 to $11 cost per click that we see here as being average for audiences in North America, I figured out what it takes to get enough leads to make a business impact, to generate enough leads that your conversion rates become statistically significant, all of these great things that tell you whether or not you're on the right track. And what we found is that that's usually about $5,000 in ad spend to get enough leads that your sales team can look at it and say, yes, these are high quality. You can measure it. You can tell with 95% certainty, here's what our cost per lead is going to look like. Here's what our conversion rate looks like. And so if you're just trying to dip your toe in the channel, we found even if it takes you 2 days to spend $5,000 or 6 months to spend it, it's just the amount of data you're looking for. Spend about 5,000 and chances are you'll have a really good idea of if this is the right channel for you.
Well, that sounds really good. And I mean, $5,000, it might sound like a lot to a lot of people, but if it's going to deliver a return on investment, then it's a no-brainer.
Oh, absolutely. And you imagine, I mean, I'm here in the state of Utah where getting a billboard along the side of the freeway is, $3,000 or $4,000 for the month. And you can put that up. And then if you realize on day 2 that billboard is not good for you, it's not going to bring you business, you still have to leave it up the other 28 days of the month. You made that commitment. But with anything digital and LinkedIn included, you could put a campaign up and 3 days in, if you realize it sucks, you can pause it, change something and pivot very quickly. So I know it sounds like a lot of money, but you're also learning a lot about your audience along the way too, because LinkedIn gave us this incredible targeting. You can do what I call micro segmentation. And let's say you're going after the same audience I talked about earlier, HR decision makers at large companies. We could say, well, we don't know who these HR folks are, but let's create one group that's just HR managers, one that's HR directors, one that's HR VPs, and one that's chief HR officers. And even if I put the same 2 ads in front of them, the same offer in front of them, what I'm going to learn along the way is I'm going to learn what messaging is attractive to what level of HR person. I'll learn, did they like that content? Did they convert? When I tried to make my tone aspirational in one of the ads and make them feel like a hero, did that perform better than when I tried to use a fear-based tactic? So not only are you generating leads, but you're also learning about your audience like a silent focus group is going on.
Yeah, and that's totally, it's so invaluable to know your personas and to be able to craft your messaging, as you said, depending on whether somebody is at a director level, VP level, CEO level, or a solopreneur level, whichever.
Yeah, and I love that you can take this information and apply it to all of your other marketing. I mean, this isn't just something you use to make your LinkedIn ads more efficient. You then take your learnings of, hey, it looks like VPs and above don't like this content. Create less of that. Let's go create more of the stuff they do like. And you can push that out across all of your different marketing channels and things that are paid and things that are organic. You can use this information just to dictate everything you do, the whole direction of your content. So I love it for that. It doesn't have to be just about LinkedIn.
And the other thing is you can also learn then whether more of the people that are actually going to make the buying decision are at the VP or director or CEO level. And so you're going to go after more of those too, right?
Oh, yeah. And this is something that if you're using other channels that don't have as good of targeting, you wouldn't get the same level of feedback. You'd have to wait for your sales reps to come back and report and say, oh, yeah, it looks like we're dealing with the VP in this deal. But from LinkedIn ads, we can tell, when our VP campaign is providing more pipeline revenue than any other level, that tells us something. So yeah, I love the targeting we can get with LinkedIn. It's, when you compare LinkedIn ads versus Facebook ads, it's like a sniper rifle versus a shotgun. With LinkedIn, we know each round is going to cost a lot more and you only get so many of them, but you're going to be ultra precise about who you get. And then with Facebook, it's going to be more of a shotgun approach. It's cheaper ammo. You can shoot a lot of them and it's kind of a spray and pray approach. And both definitely have their benefits. And I wouldn't say one is better than the other, but if you need sniper-like precision to get in front of your exact perfect audience, then as far as I'm concerned, LinkedIn ads is the only channel out there.
Well, it sounds really accurate to me. And like, again, it will deliver a good return on investment, which is what it's all about.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And you do have to be careful there because we know that LinkedIn ads is high cost. So what I tell people is, no matter how perfectly you do it, make sure that you have a high lifetime value or a high deal size on the back end to ensure that you can get a return on your investment. If you're selling, let's say, SaaS software that maybe you charge $200 a month. Well, if you're paying $8 to $11 per click just to get people interested in the top of your funnel, you may not be able to actually generate a return on your investment just because LinkedIn priced themselves too high. So the rule of thumb for me is if you're going to make $15,000 or more from the lifetime of a deal, then LinkedIn ads is a no-brainer. Anything under that, at least approach it thoughtfully. Make sure that it could make sense. We do have clients who can make it work at lower, but if you're over 15K, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, yeah. Now, what should people do, AJ, to prepare their profile page before they actually start advertising?
Oh, I love this question. When you run ads on LinkedIn, people don't see your personal profile. They only see your company profile. So we get clients coming to us saying, oh, I'm not really proud of my LinkedIn profile. And I go, don't even worry about it. Like, people aren't going to see it. But what that does is it puts the onus on your company profile, your company page. And I wouldn't even worry about that all too much. It's really difficult to put anything on your company page that you would be embarrassed about because there's relatively few things you can put. You can put a logo and your name and a description of where, who you are and where you do business and, your company size and industry. And that's pretty much it. You can't really screw anything up or it won't look like, the lights aren't on and no one's home. And we've also found that when we're running ads on LinkedIn, only about 3 to 4% of people will ever click from the ad to see the company page. So even if your company page was terrible, you're not going to see a huge impact. So sure, get it to the point where you're comfortable with it. But don't worry if it's not perfect. Don't let that stop you from advertising.
Yeah. And what I'm thinking is, do you completely bypass then creating unique landing pages?
Oh, you kind of can. There's two things you can do. When someone clicks on your ad, you could either send them to a landing page or a page of your website that you own, or you could leave them all on LinkedIn and just have them fill out a form right within the ad itself. And there are pros and cons both directions. If you go with what I will call the native lead generation form on LinkedIn, where they stay on LinkedIn the whole time, you'll see really high conversion rates because people trust LinkedIn. It's that whole experience feels very trustworthy, and LinkedIn makes it super easy for them by pre-filling all the fields that they know. So if you're just asking for first name, last name, email, and company name, for instance, all 4 of those fields will be filled out, and all someone has to do is just hit the submit button. So it made it super easy, and you got to bypass having a landing page. You don't have to send someone to your site and risk losing them if your page loads slowly or something.
I know. I'm thinking there's all kinds of advantages. Just keep them on LinkedIn.
Yes. One potential disadvantage we've seen is that because LinkedIn made it so easy for them to convert, oftentimes sales teams will report the leads as being of a lower quality. And it's an odd distinction. But what we find is if your conversion rate increased by 50% because you were using these lead gen forms, but lead quality went down something like 20%, you're still net positive 30%. So we find 60% of our clients are using these instead of sending people to their website.
Yeah. So actually, you might be spending more in advertising, but you might be saving in web development costs because you have fewer pages fewer landing pages to build and, less work to do on your website. So
it's true.
I can see the advantage. You got me sold.
Oh, you might be the only one I've ever sold. This is awesome.
I don't believe that. Because actually, our mutual friend Kate Payne told me you were the best in the business. That's why I reached out to you.
Oh, and Kate is an absolute treat.
Yes, she was. And that's still, I mean, I'm going on 100 episodes, and that's still one of my most popular episodes ever was with Kate Payne, because she is such an authority on organic LinkedIn, developing your profile. And actually, she's helping me with my profile right now. So
yes.
Yeah, I hope everybody listening will check out my profile, because she helped me rewrite my summary section, which is a very important part of your section for keywords for organic search.
Absolutely. And as soon as you get to the end of this episode, hit pause, go back and listen to Kate's episode, because she is an absolute treat of a person, and she is amazing at what she does.
That's great. Well, AJ, you are such a treat to talk to, but we're going to take a short break. Luckily, we have a few more minutes together afterwards, but we're going to hear a little bit about Marshall Communications, which is my agency and is actually the sponsor of the PR Maven podcast. So we'll be back with more from AJ Wilcox in just a moment.
Have you been thinking about starting a podcast for your business or organization, but you aren't exactly sure where to start? At Marshall Communications, our talented team can create a customized strategic plan to help you start a podcast. We call it the Marshall Plan, and it includes a comprehensive strategy, marketing tactics, and an easy step-by-step guide to getting your podcast on the air. We also include a measurement dashboard to monitor and track your listeners. After all, why go through all the work of creating a podcast if nobody is ever going to know about it? To learn more about our podcast planning services, visit marshallpr.com or call 207-623-4177. Be sure to mention the word plan during your conversation for a little something extra.
Welcome back. And today we're talking with AJ Wilcox, who's a LinkedIn ads expert and founder of b2linked.com. And I'm going to repeat that. It's B, the letter, the number 2, the word linked.com. And I want to dive right back in with more questions for AJ, who has so much energy. I love it. I can feel the energy. I'm in Maine and he's in Utah. And I think that the electrical waves are just throbbing through the microphone. I love it.
I feel bad for anyone stuck in between.
So, AJ, can you give us examples of clients who have had tremendous success with LinkedIn advertising?
Yeah, we've had quite a few, especially this last year. We had 4 separate clients who all at different times, they had significant success and all decided to significantly scale their budgets, which was of great and awesome surprise to us. One specifically came to us with a budget of like $10,000 a month, which was, fairly healthy. They're not our smallest client. And we worked with them for probably 6 months. And they came back one day and said, we just had a meeting with the sales team. We got a chance to compare all of the different ad channels that we're running and which one is producing the highest quality of leads and the most appointments. And LinkedIn won by far. Can we 9x our budget? And sure enough, I mean, it took us about 2 weeks of rebuilding the account and getting it ready, but we were able to times their budget by 9 and actually improve efficiency along the way. Most of the time when you scale on an ad platform, you lose efficiency. We actually gained it by increasing. So that was a really big one. And that was a software company. Another one that was also in software, this doesn't necessarily make us look great, but it's a good kind of case study on what works and what doesn't. The client gave us these like 5 ebooks that we could try to get people to download, and none of them were very interesting. And so we were doing all of this rapid iterative testing, trying to just what motivation can we use here to get someone to want to download these? And we couldn't get our ads to to get someone's personal information for less than $137. And so after running for several months, it's probably about 3 or 4 months, I thought for sure, if someone's paying $137 for a content download, there's no way we're staying on board. So I thought we were going to get fired. And the client came to us and said, hey, we've got this new document. Let's see if we can do anything with it. And it was called The Ultimate Guide to Onboarding. And they're an HR software kind of company. And overnight, we didn't do anything differently than what we'd been doing before. Overnight, our conversion rates tripled, our costs basically cut in half, and we ended up getting our cost per lead down to $27 per form fill. And this content was so good that people, usually when you run an ad for, let's say a month, or maybe even slightly longer, people will have seen the ad before and you'll see conversion rates slow down. We kept the same offer running for like 6 months, and it didn't really meaningfully slow down. So that's the power of having a great offer, a great lead magnet, great content, that really we're a great ad agency, but there was nothing we could do, no amount of lipstick that we could put on the pig that was these other 4 assets. But you have a really good asset and you can really do no wrong. It was so good.
That's a really great story. And I love the combination of content marketing and LinkedIn advertising, because I'm a big proponent of content. And, as you said, you had 4 ebooks that were essentially duds. But once you had a really compelling title, The Ultimate Guide to Onboarding, that's something that obviously resonated with your avatar, which was probably HR directors.
Yeah, yep, totally. And one thing we've really come to understand is that no one wants to click on an ad that just says, here's what we do, click here to talk to sales, or buy now. Because everything we do on social media, you have to assume this is the first time they've ever heard of you. So they're a cold audience. And I love that you're all about content, Nancy, because if we try to push ads to what I call the bottom of the funnel, send people, we're asking too much too soon. It would be the equivalent of asking someone to marry you on the very first date. It's like, you might be great to marry, but boy, now's not the right time to bring it up.
That takes all the fun out of it, too.
I agree with that.
The best part is leading up to the marriage.
Yes, exactly. And that's what content is, too. Like, if you can give people really good, juicy content, they will skip the top of the funnel and jump right to the middle, and they can convince themselves to get right to the bottom of the sales process very quickly. So, if I had a budget of $10,000 for LinkedIn ads, I would sooner spend $9,000 creating amazing content and only $1,000 promoting it, because that's how valuable the content actually is.
Well, as someone who just published her second book, I published a book just last week, actually, called Grow Your Audience, Grow Your Brand. It's on Amazon.com. It's available now in paperback and Kindle, but it will soon be available in Audible because I'll be recording it in the next week or so. So
congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah. And I've been going to the Content Marketing World Conference in Cleveland for several years, and I just love everything about that. So, and I had Robert Rose, who's the principal of Content Marketing Institute, on this podcast. So, I'm really into content marketing. So I just love the fact that the two, content marketing and LinkedIn advertising, work so well together.
Oh, they're like peanut butter and jelly, I'm telling you.
Said by the dad of 4 children under 10 years old.
Yes, we have plenty of PB&J around here.
That's right. Yeah, right. So, AJ, what is the persona of the ideal client for your business?
There's a whole bunch of different verticals that do really well with LinkedIn ads. What we found is most of what we talk about and do is the business-to-business lead gen side of things. So basically, if you're doing lead gen, really B2B or B2C, with a really big lifetime value of a customer, let's say over $15,000, then LinkedIn ads is going to be a no-brainer. But then there's also like a white collar recruiting type of aspect where, let's say if you're trying to hire a new sales manager, you can target people in your area with the current job title sales manager and show ads that just say, hey, you look qualified. Do you want to talk? Like, would you be interested in checking this out or applying? Checking this out or applying. And you can get these passive candidates, which recruiters love. And I mean, usually when we're running these campaigns, we're beating the cost of what recruiters can will charge to bring in these leads themselves, even through LinkedIn's recruiter product. So we love that one, white collar recruiting of any kind. And the third that we found a lot of success with is in higher education, a lot of MBA programs specifically, because we can target someone who got a bachelor's degree but hasn't yet gotten a master's or PhD. We can target what they got their degree in, what school they graduated from. And so if your goal is to get someone for a master's program or even a PhD program, you can show ads just to the right kind of people who studied the right thing.
So when you're doing discovery with a new client, you must delve into all of the decision-making points and, exactly what you're talking about here. As somebody who's got a bachelor's, but they haven't gone to get a master's, and where are they coming from? And do you do that in a meeting or in a survey or questionnaire? How do you find that out?
Yeah, it's a great question. I got so tired, for the first 4 years of running my company, I got so tired of having the same conversation over and over. And so what I started doing is every lead that comes in, I send them a quick 7-minute video where I walk through the qualifications of like who's good for LinkedIn ads or not. And then I ask them 4 questions like, who's your target audience? What's your monthly budget that you're able to put in here? What is a customer worth to you? And then finally, what sort of lead magnets or content do you have? And if they will watch that 7-minute video and then very quickly answer those 4 questions, by the time we get on the phone, we can jump right into the meat. I can jump right into, okay, tell me about these lead magnets and how do you track conversions and what does your sales process look like? So it just gets us so much further along rather than having to ask and explain what those 4 things are to every call. And then by the end, we've run out of time and we can't even talk about like what steps look like to move forward.
So if one of our listeners were to work with you, AJ, what would the range of fees be just so that they can plan for the budget before they contact you?
Perfect. We charge a flat $2,000 a month for management until someone is spending over $10,000 a month on ads. So if you're spending $1 or $10,000, our fee is going to be the same either way. And like we talked about earlier, I really recommend starting with a $5,000 budget, just because if you're spending that in 1 month, by the end of the month, you can look at it and say, yes, this looks with certainty like it's going to be a success, or no, this sucks, we should fire AJ and not spend another time on LinkedIn. That's really nice to know in month 1 so that you don't have to spend in month 2 if it's not looking good.
But should they plan? I know with my services, I like clients to continue at least for a year, because with PR services, it's really in year 2 or 3 that things really start to deliver an ROI. Is it the same with LinkedIn advertising, that you want them to continue with you for a certain period of time?
Yeah, what we find is it's not quite as long, but we find that in month 1, we're doing a lot of testing to figure out what resonates and what doesn't. And we'll find some inefficiencies. So we fix those in month 2 and we find some more. And then so usually by month 3, if we get to the end of month 3 and they see, wow, this is what performance can look like for a whole month, hopefully they'll want to keep us around forever after that. But usually if we can keep someone around for 3 months showing success, they're going to stick with us for a long time.
I'm sure they do. And I'm sure they enjoy it too.
Oh, I sure hope so. Every call with me, it's a roller coaster.
Yeah. So, AJ, what is the best way for listeners to find you? And I bet you're going to say LinkedIn.
I will break from tradition here because I guard my LinkedIn network very closely. Anyone who's listening, I would love to be connected, but just make sure that when you send a connection request, you customize it and let me know that you heard me on Nancy's show, because I get so many connection requests from people that I don't know, and I just kind of ignore them. But if you want to get in touch directly, if you go to b2linked.com, you can fill out the form on any of those pages, and you won't go to a sales rep, and you won't be put on our newsletter and get spammed mercilessly. You just come directly to my inbox, and I'm not a sales guy. So feel free to reach out, ask me anything you want.
That sounds awesome. Well, AJ, I am so glad we had this time together today because it's really uplifted me. And I'm really, I can't wait to find something to work on with you because I think we would have a lot of fun together.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm so glad that this is at the end of your workday because what a way to finish the day, right?
Yes, it's been awesome. Well, thanks again. And I hope everyone who's listening benefited as much as I did. And I hope you have a great day, PR Maven Nation. That's it for this week's episode. I'd like to thank you for listening. And if you feel that you've gotten value out of today's conversation, consider leaving a 5-star review on iTunes or whatever app you're using to tune in. If you haven't subscribed yet, you should do so. I release a new episode each week, and subscribing will make sure you get an alert when there's a new episode. You can also join the PR Maven Nation by going to prmaven.com/nation and clicking join. It's free, and it's a great community of like-minded individuals who are all looking to learn and grow from one another. If you have an Alexa-enabled device, be sure to add the PR Maven Marketing Minute to your daily flash briefing menu. Thanks again for listening, and have a great rest of your week, PR Maven Nation.